ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky joins us each week courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Use code NEXTROUND to double your initial deposit. That's code NEXTROUND when you visit MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. What do you say there, Dan? What's going on, buddy?
Well, what's going on is that okay, so Eric Dickerson
Yep.
won. I see that.
Yep.
I'm going to take a couple shots at this, okay?
Yeah, you're not going to get mine. I've told you it's going to require context. I'll probably have to text you a video.
You're not the dude from Cool Runnings.
I am not the dude from Cool Runnings. Wasn't that what Harper said? Did Harper say that?
Did he say that? No, I think Harper said the guy from Half Baked.
Yeah, Roman Harper had me from Half Baked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I can't see perfectly. I thought that may have been like a Jamaican beanie you have on.
Yes, I was very close.
But Dan, since you brought it up and it's the obvious Eric Dickerson, a little unfair. I brought this up. Now, I know I'm a biased Rams fan, but he still does have the single season rushing record. And when we talk about, and you grew up watching, obviously playing the game, watching the game, big fan, but we always talk about Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith and Walter Payton. Nobody talks about Eric Dickerson.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I don't even, I grew up Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Jim Brown. I don't know if we probably see enough of highlights of Eric Dickerson. You often see highlights of Jim Brown and Earl Campbell and Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders. I don't know if I've seen a ton and or enough of Eric Dickerson highlights. I know he's an unbelievable back and an all-time great, but for some reason we don't see them as much or see him as much as the others.
And you never see that style. He was a big back that ran straight up and just kind of glided. And you just don't see that style.
Derrick Henry-ish, right?
Yeah. Well, you're right. Maybe the best running back in football right now.
Yeah.
Outside of Derrick Henry, yes.
Yeah. Dan Orlovsky from ESPN with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Not that you were ever in a locker room that experienced anything like this, because it's a relatively unique situation, but you played in the NFL, you know how the league works, and you talk to people that are still in the league. What is the reception in the locker room? What is the locker room like for a guy like Tyrique Stevenson that just makes a bonehead play, and it doesn't necessarily directly lead to the loss, but it certainly felt like it contributed to the loss? What happens in a locker room for a guy like that?
Yeah, you're probably relatively widespread of what the response is. There's certainly going to be guys right after the moment that are furious and disappointed, and you got to be kidding me, or Tyreek, how could you do this? Or you're the reason we lost. And then there's going to be part of your locker room that, is a little bit of muted to it. And then I think there's a part of your locker room that's probably the opposite. Like, listen, Tyreek's one of the reasons why we were in that game, and he's going to be a huge reason why we're going to win games in the future. And he's a pivotal part of our team. And so you hope that the latter outweighs the former, and you hope that your leadership steps up. And two things could be true at the same time. Like, listen, this is unacceptable. We can't do this. This is not who we are. This is what we've been in the past. Now we're going to be in the future. But also, we move on from it. Everyone learns from this. And we all have to we all could have been better. Any of us could have been Tyreek type of thing. And so the leadership is paramount in that moment.
Okay, I want to bring college and NFL together just for one question, because you're a former quarterback. I know you're still a big fan of the college game, but there is a theory out there when it comes to Jalen Milroe. And I remember you guys cutting it up after the Georgia game and people saying, man, this guy should be the number one guy taken overall. Since that moment, his game has changed a little bit. We speculated maybe he's hurt just because you don't see that explosion. He's not running the football. There is a theory out there that people close to him are saying, you've got to refine your game throwing the football. You've got to show that you can be a great pocket passer. My thought is, if I'm a general manager, the reason I want him is he's so dynamic. Lamar Jackson, the obvious example. Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts. Those guys, what makes them so dangerous is the ability to do what they can with their legs. Am I off on this?
No, not at all. I've heard that about other guys in the past as well, that have had people in their ears saying, play to this certain style or don't run. I had heard that about CJ Stroud coming out when it came to, hey, CJ was kind of guided towards not running because of the health. And like that was the best thing to stay healthy because he knew he was going to be a higher draft pick. Whether that's true or not, you had heard rumors of that. I think that it's fair to say this. All of those guys that you mentioned, they're elite passers and elite throwers of the ball. and then the ability to run makes them truly special. I think Jalen's an elite runner, and his ability to throw gives him the opportunity to be truly special. But the reality is, in the NFL, 99 out of 100 times, maybe 100 out of 100, you got to be elite throwing the ball. And then to be special, you have the ability to run. And I don't think Jalen's flipped that just yet. Can he get there? For sure. But he hasn't flipped that just yet.
Dan Orlovsky joins us weekly courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign on at MyBookie.ag. They double that initial deposit that you make. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.ag. You mentioned Houston, or CJ Stroud. His team, Houston, is in action tonight against the Jets. They are a 2-point home favorite. I asked Lance this earlier. I mean, at some point we're going to get to this is do or die for the Jets. Are we there yet? Is it too early in the season to say this is do or die for them?
Oh, no, not at all. I would tell you we're past it. Candidly, I would have told you I really thought Sunday Night Football 2 weeks ago was a must win. And then last week for me was the do or die versus a New England team that, had backups everywhere, and to lose that game. So I think now it's a little bit of, can they save face a little bit? Can they play with personal pride? Can they, I guess, make it interesting, make going to work interesting on a daily basis? You're getting into the time of year where, this is just the truth. They're one of those teams, and geographically one of those locations. Weather starts to turn. It starts to get cold and gray. You don't necessarily want to be 3-10 going to work every day, knowing that you're not necessarily in their situations even more unique because this is a go get it done year. Like it's hard to envision if it continues on this path that the people that are there, both decision making and player, that they're a part of next year. So it feels like you're playing for almost nothing in a way.
Look, I know the Chiefs are going to end up winning the AFC West, but Denver's won 5 of 6, and they are starting to get sneaky good, in my opinion. Do you think Denver is a postseason team?
I do not know. I think it's a postseason defense. I do not believe that the offense is good enough. I don't think it's consistent enough. I don't think it's explosive enough. I don't think they can control the game is enough. There's been moments, and Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix do have a good connection, but I don't think that offense is good enough against teams like Buffalo and the Chiefs and the Ravens. Even we'll see what happens with the Chargers. Chargers handled them 2 weeks ago. So I don't see them as a playoff team. No, but they're playing good, solid, improved football.
Yeah, and I think one of those teams you might have been searching for, maybe you said it, I didn't hear it, the Texans. The Stefon Diggs injury, what does that do to the Texans?
Yeah, it's an impactful injury. I mean, Stefon's a very good player, a very good complementary piece to Nico Collins. I don't think this derails their season or ruins this season. I was higher on Houston than I am right now. I love their defense. I love CJ. Nico has to get healthy. But the interior of their offensive line and their pass is a massive concern. That is more likely to derail their season for me. But that's not their biggest issue right now. It's protecting CJ Stroud.
A few more moments to Dan Orlovsky, presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round. I don't suppose this is the end for Anthony Richardson, but Flacco is good enough to keep them in the discussion. Is this the end of this season, do you think, for Anthony Richardson?
It certainly seems that way, if not for injury. It certainly sounds that way when Shane Steichen says he's the guy moving forward. Yeah. And so, I don't think saying this could be the end of his time with the Colts is outrageous. It's one of those situations where, as time has gotten past Sunday, for me, I feel it's way more about being the quarterback than playing quarterback with Anthony. It's about the everyday commitment, the leadership, the intangibles, the work ethic, the character, more than you're not developing as a passer. I think that I find it interesting that when you take the young man, he's a developmental project. Like, he is, but you're so encapsulated by the talent. And then, injuries derail some of that development, but you weren't going to develop in 13 games. Like, very few players have ever developed in 13 games. So for me, it's so much more about just the play on the field. That's my takeaway. And it's hard to see because I think this team will be competitive. It's hard to see going into year 3 going, yep, Anthony's the guy, when he's only played 13 starts and you benched him. Yeah, I don't – it's hard for me to envision how this plays out in a best-case scenario for the Colts when it comes to that player.
Okay, before you get out of here, Eric Dickerson's got to ask a question about the Rams in the NFC West. I know injuries have really caused a lot of chaos in that division, but now with Cooper Kupp back, Puka back, the offensive line – starting to gel a little bit. Sean McVay said we can't start a streak without win number 1. They win 2 games in 5 days against the Raiders and the Vikings. Now they go to Seattle. If the Rams can stay healthy, I know they're 3-4 right now. What can the Rams be at the end of the year?
I think they do. I expect them to win the division. I think that it's the best young defensive line in football. I think with those receivers healthy, they can go score on anybody. Obviously, Matthews playing as good as he did last year. They're going to get 2 of those offensive linemen healthy back and within the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Yeah, that would be, if they stay healthy, that's my pick to win the division.
All right, he is Dan Orlovsky. See him all weekend long on ESPN. Are you doing college football this week? You skipped a Bama game and they won 34-0. So Alabama fans love you, but they're like, why don't you not do anymore?
No college football this weekend. I have to do work all day Saturday for ESPN, commercial shoot, and then travel Sunday to Monday Night Football, but I do think there's the chance that I'll be there next week for the LSU game.
Oh my gosh. Orlovsky back just in time for a must-win game for the Crimson Tide. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Dan, have a great weekend, man. Thank you very much for the time.
All right, boys.
All right, take care. Dan Orlovsky with us each week, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign on at MyBookie.ag. Double that initial deposit, and you can win anything right there. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag. You make your initial deposit. They double it with code next round at MyBookie.ag. Thank you very much to Dan for coming on the show. We always appreciate his time talking some NFL.